Billy Abbott's never-ending spiral. For decades, Billy Abbott has been one of Genoa City's most complicated characters, part charming rogue, part self-destructive gambler, part tragic underdog, and part ambitious dreamer. This week on The Young and the Restless, we once again saw his world unravel thanks to yet another one of his reckless decisions. Not only does Billy have a penchant for failure, but he also carries a raw vulnerability whenever he tries to reinvent himself, which is what makes him such a captivating figure. From his days at Chancellor, to Chance.com, to Abbott Communications, the writers have bounced him from one professional endeavor to another, rarely giving him the stability his character desperately needs. The flaws in his judgment were brought to light by Sally's pleas for him to reject Kane's shady offer of an illegal AI program. Despite everything he has lost in the past due to shortcuts, Billy still finds himself tempted by the quick win, the easy path, and the high-risk gamble. But what fans see, and what Sally, Jack, and Victoria painfully recognize, is that Billy's core need isn't to outsmart Victor Newman or to prove himself in some flashy startup. Billy's true salvation lies in returning to the place where he last had a sense of grounding, Jabot. Why Jabot is the natural fit. Jabot isn't just a cosmetics company. For the Abbott family, it's the living legacy of John Abbott, the patriarch who instilled values of family, loyalty, and stability in his children. For Jack, Jabot has been both a fortress and a battlefield, a place where he constantly defends the Abbott name against outsiders like Victor and hostile takeovers. For Kyle, Jabot is both an inheritance and a proving ground. It has always been the intellectual and creative home of Ashley. And for Billy, when he allowed himself to lean into it, Jabot was the one environment where his worst impulses were muted by a sense of belonging. Unlike the fly-by-night ventures that appealed to his need for independence, Jabot gave Billy both structure and a safety net. Jack valued his input, trusted him with responsibility, and gave him space to contribute meaningfully. There were fewer temptations for reckless gambling when he was working alongside family instead of trying to compete with them. The truth is, Jabot fits Billy like no other role has because it ties him to the one thing that has always mattered more than winning against Victor or proving his brilliance, family. The destructive allure of quick wins. Billy's Achilles heel has always been his appetite for shortcuts. Whether it's gambling away fortunes, scheming with Victoria only to sabotage the relationship later, or chasing risky startups, he has a hard time playing the long game. Kane's offer of the AI program epitomizes the kind of trap Billy falls into, a golden ticket promising instant success, revenge on Victor, and the power to reclaim Chancellor. But as Sally pointed out, this wasn't an opportunity, it was a setup for ruin. Billy would have been imprisoned if he had used stolen or illegal technology, even if Kane really had the program. And in the process, he lied to Sally, tanked their trust, and proved Jack and Victoria's worst fears right. That Billy cannot resist a dangerous gamble. This destructive cycle is why so many fans believe Billy must hit the reset button by going back to Jabot. It isn't just about giving him a job, it's about giving him a purpose where the rules are clearer, the risks are measured, and the support system is familial rather than adversarial. Jack's steadying influence. Jack knows Billy better than anyone else. Over the years, Jack has seen his younger brother at his highest highs and lowest lows. He knows the depth of Billy's addiction struggles, his hunger for validation, and his tendency to self-sabotage. However, Jack never completely disregards him. He believes in Billy's potential even when Billy doesn't. Jack would be able to provide Billy with that stability once more by bringing him back to Jabot, not by cuddling Billy, but by providing him with meaningful work and holding him accountable. Jack has the patience to redirect Billy's impulses and the wisdom to recognize when his brother is veering off track. Their brotherly bond has carried the Abbott legacy forward, and it would be a powerful story to see them reunite not as rivals or disappointed siblings, but as partners in making Jabot stronger. More importantly, Jack could give Billy a role where his creative instincts and out-of-the-box thinking are channeled constructively instead of destructively. Kyle and Diane, the obstacles. Naturally, bringing Billy back to Jabot would be fraught with difficulties. Kyle and Diane are two major players at the company now, and both have their own ideas about how the Abbott empire should be run. Particularly with regard to Jabot's leadership structure, Kyle has a history of feeling entitled. He often feels overshadowed by Jack's favoritism toward Billy or Ashley. Adding Billy back into the mix could stoke Kyle's insecurities and reignite sibling rivalries that Jabot has barely kept under control. Diane, on the other hand, is a strategist. She might accept Billy's return if it aligns with Jack's wishes, but she is also calculating enough to see Billy as a threat to her and Kyle's influence. This tension could make for compelling drama on Wyandotte, an internal power struggle where Jack must balance his love for both his son and his brother, while Billy fights not to sabotage himself in the process. In some ways, these challenges are exactly what Billy needs: resistance that forces him to grow up, prove his worth, and stand tall without relying on shortcuts. Sally's broken heart. Perhaps the most tragic casualty of Billy's recent choices is his relationship with Sally Spectra. Sally begged him not to take Kane's deal, not because she wanted to control him, but because she could see how dangerous it was. Billy's lie about Jack pulling funding for Abbott Communications was a devastating betrayal. Sally, who has already endured heartbreak with Adam and Nick, was finally opening herself up to a man who seemed ready to build something real with her. To watch Billy throw it away for another reckless gamble was gut-wrenching. If Billy returns to Jabot, there's a chance he could begin to rebuild that trust, not necessarily romantically right away, but by proving that he is capable of stability. Sally would no doubt watch from a distance, perhaps skeptical, but maybe, just maybe, willing to believe in him again if he sticks to the straight and narrow. Their story doesn't have to end in ashes, it could become one of redemption if Billy makes the right choice. The endless Billy versus Victor war. One of the biggest reasons Billy needs Jabot is to finally move beyond his obsession with Victor Newman. Every time Billy tries to beat Victor at his own game, he ends up humiliated, broke, or emotionally destroyed. Victor is a titan, a master manipulator, and a strategist who has crushed stronger opponents than Billy. Time and again, Billy has set himself on fire just to try and win a battle against Victor, forgetting that the war was never worth fighting. Billy is viewed by Victor as a foolish child playing with matches rather than an equal. By returning to Jabot, Billy could finally shift his focus away from Victor's shadow and toward building something meaningful with his family. He could demonstrate himself by enhancing the Abbott legacy rather than attempting to defeat Victor. This would not only give Billy peace but also free him from the toxic cycle of Newman versus. He has been drained for years by Abbott. A road to purification at this point, fans are tired of watching Billy fail. We've seen him gamble away fortunes, destroy relationships, relapse into self-destructive patterns, and throw away opportunities. While Jason Thompson does a phenomenal job portraying Billy's torment, it's emotionally exhausting for viewers to watch him crash and burn over and over again. What fans want, and what the character deserves, is a win. Not an unrealistic, overnight success story, but a grounded, believable arc of redemption. Jabot offers that path. Imagine Billy being given control of a new division focused on philanthropy, perhaps directing a percentage of profits toward addiction recovery charities. Not only would this tie into his personal struggles, but it would allow him to channel his pain into something positive. For once, Billy could be the hero of his own story instead of the cautionary tale. Why it matters for the young and the restless. Soap operas thrive on conflict, but they also thrive on evolution. Characters cannot stay stuck in the same cycles forever without risking audience fatigue. Billy Abbott's story has been stuck in a loop of failure, addiction, and rivalry for too long. Moving him back to Jabot would not only refresh his character but also enrich the canvas of Genoa City. It would create natural storylines with Jack, Kyle, Diane, and even Ashley. It would open the door for Sally's cautious re-entry into his life. It would lessen the reliance on Victor as Billy's eternal antagonist and shift his energy toward the Abbott family dynamics, which have always been some of the most compelling on the show. Ultimately, giving Billy a win by anchoring him at Jabot would satisfy longtime viewers who have been rooting for him to grow, while also keeping him deeply enmeshed in the show's central families and businesses. White heavy checkmark. In summary, Billy Abbott's recent downward spiral has highlighted exactly why he needs Jabot. It's the only place where he has true stability, a support system, and a chance at redemption. Jack's steady hand, Kyle and Diane's resistance, Sally's heartbreak, and Victor's looming shadow all make this potential return ripe with drama. But most importantly, Billy has always called Jabot home. And there is no better place for this character to begin again if the young and the restless truly wishes to offer him a chance at redemption. The identity crisis of Billy Abbott. One of the most persistent themes in Billy's arc has been his identity crisis. Unlike Jack, Ashley, and even Tracy, who all seem to have defined lanes within the Abbott family legacy, Billy often appears restless and uncertain about his place. At times, he has leaned into being the family screw-up, embracing rebellion as an identity in itself. Other times, he has craved validation so badly that he chased ventures outside of Jabot in the hopes of carving out his own empire. The tragedy is that in trying to escape his family's shadow, Billy has repeatedly landed in situations that diminish him further. Chance.com looked promising, but it fell apart after clashes with Adam and Victor. Chancellor Industries gave him a stage, but his tenure was short-lived. Abbott Communications barely made it out of the gate before his poor decisions and Kane's manipulation blew it up. He has not been proud of his independence attempts, rather, they have only served to highlight his instability. What Billy needs is not distance from his family's company but reintegration with it. By returning to Jabot, he would not only find structure but also rediscover his identity as an Abbott who belongs at the core of the family enterprise. The weight of Jill's legacy. We cannot discuss Billy's career choices without acknowledging Jill Abbott, his mother. Jill's legacy is complicated, but she has always had sky-high expectations for Billy. Chancellor's sale to Victor may have been a wise business move, but Billy saw it as yet another wound in a long line of real and perceived betrayals. His recent obsession with reclaiming Chancellor is not so much about business as it is about reclaiming something he feels was taken away from him. But Jill's influence has always been double-edged. On one hand, she's pushed him to fight harder. On the other, her own ambition has sometimes left Billy feeling like he can never measure up. Jabot provides something novel. Jabot, in contrast to Chance.com and Chancellor, is associated with John Abbott, Billy's idolized father who passed away too soon. Both of these characters are influenced by Victor and Jill's legacy. By returning to Jabot, Billy would be aligning himself with the better parts of his heritage, the parts that encourage loyalty, responsibility, and family first. It could also create powerful drama if Jill were to re-enter the fold and question whether Billy is running toward security or hiding from risk. Billy and addiction, a cyclical pattern. Billy's gambling addiction has shaped his narrative for years. It is not just a storyline quirk, it is a psychological pattern that explains many of his destructive decisions. Addiction is about chasing the high, the adrenaline rush, the sense of control in chaos. That is exactly what Kane's AI offer represented, another bet Billy could not resist. Every time Billy goes down that road, he loses more than money, he loses relationships, trust, and self-respect. Jabot stands in contrast to this cycle. It is not glamorous or risky in the same way a startup or tech gamble is, but it is stable. It does not give him an instant high, but it gives him long-term rewards. If the writers positioned his return to Jabot as part of his ongoing recovery journey, it could resonate deeply with viewers who understand that recovery isn't about avoiding temptation once, but about consistently choosing stability over risk. Billy could take on projects at Jabot that mirror his own battle campaigns centered on wellness, mental health awareness, or addiction recovery funding. This would allow him to channel his pain into purpose, something audiences are yearning to see from him. Kyle Abbott, rivalry or partnership? A huge point of tension in Billy's return would be his dynamic with Kyle. Kyle has worked tirelessly to prove himself as the future of Jabot, often seeking Jack's approval as validation. Billy's re-entry would inevitably feel like a threat to that trajectory. The two men are different in temperament. Kyle is calculating and entitled at times, while Billy is impulsive and emotionally driven. This difference could lead to explosive clashes over strategy, leadership, and even personal lives. But what if the writers took a more nuanced approach? Instead of only portraying them as rivals, there's room to explore how Billy and Kyle might actually complement one another. Billy's creativity and instinctive thinking could balance Kyle's more rigid and corporate mindset. If they learned to work together rather than constantly undermining each other, they could form a powerful team that strengthens Jabot in new ways. Of course, such growth would not come easy. It would be built on heated boardroom debates, power struggles, and Jack acting as the mediator. This would give the show a multi-generational Abbott storyline, grounding the family drama in business stakes rather than external villains alone. Diane's role in the equation. Diane Jenkins is one of the most polarizing characters on The Young and the Restless, and her presence at Jabot complicates everything. As Jack's partner and Kyle's mother, she has a vested interest in ensuring her family's influence at the company remains secure. It's easy to see how Billy's return could upset that balance. Diane is a master of strategy. She has the ability to subtly undermine Billy by encouraging Kyle to view Billy as a rival or by instilling doubt in Jack's mind. On the other hand, Diane could surprise us. Her softer side, which she occasionally shows when it comes to Jack, might lead her to support Billy's return as a way of keeping the family united. The tension between these two possibilities makes her a wild card in the narrative. If Diane aligns with Billy, it could create unexpected alliances. If she opposes him, it could make for delicious scheming, as she maneuvers behind the scenes while Billy struggles to keep his footing. Either way, Diane's presence ensures that Billy's return to Jabot won't be smooth sailing, and that's exactly what makes it worth exploring dramatically. Sally Spectra, a story left unfinished. Sally's heartbreak is fresh, but it is also a crucial turning point for Billy. Her plea for him to stay away from Kane's shady deal was not just about business, it was about love, trust, and survival. Billy's lie about Jack pulling funding was devastating, not only because it sabotaged their relationship but because it confirmed Sally's worst fears, that Billy cannot be trusted to prioritize stability over chaos. Yet, their story doesn't feel finished. Adam, Nick, and now Billy are three examples of Sally's pattern of falling for men with complicated lives. Each relationship has forced her to confront her own need for security versus her attraction to volatility. If Billy were to return to Jabot and genuinely commit to stability, it could become the very proof Sally needs to reconsider their future. Imagine the dramatic payoff if she were to see him thriving in a structured environment, working alongside Jack, and resisting the urge to gamble on shortcuts. Their reunion would not be immediate, nor should it be, but it would be earned. Fans who have invested in their pairing deserve the possibility of redemption, and Jabot could be the stage for that healing to begin. Business as drama, why Jabot works better than startups. One of the criticisms fans often voice about Billy's storylines is that his business ventures outside of Jabot feel disconnected from the show's core. Soap operas thrive on family-driven companies because they intertwine business with personal relationships. Jabot, Chancellor Winters, and Newman Enterprises are not just businesses, rather, they are subsidiaries of the families themselves. Abbott Communications never felt fully realized because it lacked that family connection. It was Billy and Sally against the world, which may have been romantic at first but quickly became narratively thin. Jabot, by contrast, is layered with decades of history, rivalries, and emotional stakes. Every decision made at Jabot ripples across multiple characters and families. By bringing Billy back there, the writers would not only give him purpose but also re-anchor the show in its strongest tradition, business as a metaphor for family loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. Billy doesn't need another startup. He needs to be part of something larger than himself, something that ties him to the past while giving him a future. Victor Newman, letting go of the rivalry. Victor has been Billy's white whale for years. Every time Billy tries to outmaneuver him, it ends in disaster. And yet, the obsession continues. Returning to Jabot could be the first real step toward letting go of this toxic rivalry. Victor enjoys Billy's opponents because they make him appear weaker in comparison. If Billy were to stop playing Victor's game altogether and focus on building something at Jabot, it would rob Victor of that power dynamic. Billy could, for the first time, break out of Victor's shadow and demonstrate that his success does not depend on beating the mustache. This doesn't mean Victor would disappear from his orbit, far from it. Victor might even test Billy further, trying to bait him into reckless moves. But if Billy stays grounded at Jabot, resisting those traps, it could mark a true evolution for his character. Fans who have watched him lose time and again would finally see growth, and the show itself would benefit from refreshing one of its most tired rivalries. The emotional payoff for viewers. Soap audiences are incredibly loyal, but they also demand payoff. For too long, Billy's story has been about loss, relapse, and failure. While this creates drama, It also risks alienating viewers who want to see their favorite characters grow. Billy doesn't need to become a saint, his flaws are what make him compelling, but he does need a win. Returning to Jabot would feel like that win, not because it erases his past, but because it reframes it. Every mistake, every loss, every heartbreak could be reinterpreted as the road that finally led him home. Even if Billy's success at Jabot is messy and complicated, it would be therapeutic for his loyal fans to watch. It would also give Jason Thompson richer material to play, allowing him to portray not just the anguish of failure but the tentative joy of redemption. Conclusion: why Jabot is the only way forward. When we step back and look at Billy Abbott's journey, the conclusion is clear. He has tried and failed at independence. He has chased validation in all the wrong places. He has relapsed into addiction cycles and sabotaged his own happiness. But at his core, Billy is not a lone wolf. He is an Abbott, and Jabot is where he belongs. Returning there would not just be a storyline twist, it would be a narrative correction, bringing his character full circle in a way that honors his history while giving him a future. It would spark rivalries with Kyle, tensions with Diane, possible reconciliation with Sally, and even new confrontations with Victor. Most importantly, it would give Billy and the audience a sense of forward momentum instead of yet another backward slide. For all his flaws, Billy Abbott deserves a shot at redemption. And Jabot is the only place where that redemption can truly begin.